Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 10th Annual Magnitsky Awards, a figure that for those of us who were here at the very beginning seems almost impossible, but it is, of course, the testament to the indefatigability of one man and the memory of the integrity of another that we all find ourselves here today. I speak, of course, of, well, at this point I normally say Bill Browder, but I'm under strict instructions that it will be straight to the Tower of London for me if I don't introduce him correctly as Sir William Browder. And it was, of course, to the memory of his murdered lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky, that Bill chose to dedicate much of his life. And it is that dedication that brings together this motley crew of characters now on an annual basis to both celebrate the extraordinary achievements of some extraordinary people and also, of course, to remember those who cannot be with us on evenings like this for the most acute and memorable of reasons. In fact, it may be appropriate to note that we find ourselves this evening contemplating two extraordinarily brave Russian men, one of whom is not here and one of whom is, but both of whom were imprisoned by Vladimir Putin, because even as world politics changes, even as the United Kingdom greets a new Prime Minister since we last gathered, and America, of course, has just elected a new president, there are constants, something that Alexei Navalny writes about in his book Patriot, about how unsatisfying it is sometimes when people offered him words of succor that this too will pass or this will be over soon. There's no guarantee that it will be. There is no guarantee that oppressive regimes will pass like the weather, or that good will triumph, or that evil will be vanquished by some sort of ineluctable logic that will be applied by divine forces. It's not divine and it's not logical. It takes human beings doing acts of extraordinary humanity to bring an end to atrocious regimes, some of which we have critiqued and indeed examined together at the annual Magnitsky Awards. And tonight will be no different. There are 6 people set to receive awards that obviously could not be more richly deserved, but as each one is handed out, our thoughts will turn to people who can't be with us tonight. I'd take one moment, if I may, to remember a friend of mine, a woman who you may not know the name of. It was a woman called Lily Pullman, herself a survivor of the Holocaust, who was sheltered by a Nazi party member who was a colleague of her mother and who chose to hide Lily and her mother in her attic to, obviously, extraordinary personal peril and extraordinary personal risk. I had the great privilege of becoming her friend quite late in her life. And she had a mantra that she lived by as she toured schools across the world, but chiefly in the United Kingdom, having made her home here. And she would lecture and teach and seek to spread a message of peace throughout all communities, all faiths, all religions, all ethnicities, all nationalities. And the phrase that she used to describe her mission was that ordinary people do extraordinary things. The risk taken by the seamstress who sheltered her and her mother was an ordinary person doing an extraordinary thing. And until that fickle finger of fate taps you on the shoulder and says, this is or is not your moment, you never know whether or not you, as an ordinary person, will step up to the plate of doing ordinary things, extraordinary things. And later this evening, we will recognize, I hope no one minds me calling them an ordinary person. I hope no one's sort of nursing the idea that I'm an extraordinary person doing extraordinary things. You are all extraordinary to us, but we all begin ordinary. And it's the commission of the extraordinary acts that the Magnitsky Awards recognize each year. We begin with a departure from the normal routine. I am absolutely delighted to tell you that we're joined this evening by a performer of international repute, an award-winning German mezzo-soprano, now based in London, who has performed alongside, to name but a few, Placido Domingo, Jose Carreras, Montserrat Caballé, and Robbie Williams. So all the greats. Friederike has sung at the Royal Albert Hall and starred with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra at the Cadogan Hall as well. So with no further ado, please join me in welcoming Friederike Krum.
And now the secret has been revealed. Why this lady is wearing this big ball gown? My lords, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to be here tonight with all of you who have done and are still doing so much for democracy and for human rights. A cause and fight we must never cease to continue. The aria I'm singing, for those who haven't read and turned their little note on the table around, is the aria of Tosca, who is praying because she's absolutely devastated about the destiny she has to endure because the man that she loves is being tortured and executed. And sadly, some of you here in this room have been witness to some of these atrocities. Thank you. Thank you. The real applause goes to all of these, not me tonight. The following aria, I thought we need something a bit cheerful, because with all of what's going on in the world, I still have the hope that love conquers all. So when I think of love in opera, there's, of course, Habanera and Carmen. So this is going to be a little bit of a naughty Carmen for you all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Friederike Krumm. Fantastic. Now, if you could be upstanding for the national anthem.
As it is His Majesty's birthday today,
God save our gracious King, long live our noble King. God save the King, send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the King.
Thank you so much. I know that Friederike was hoping that I'd join her for a duet of the famous aria from Der Rosenkavalier. But unfortunately, time is against us this evening, so we must move along swiftly. The first presenter of the first award this evening needs no introduction whatsoever. Normally when people say that, they then go on to provide an introduction, but I mean it. He needs no introduction whatsoever. Here to present the Human Rights Defender Lifetime Achievement Award is Sir William Browder.
Wow. After hearing the opera, that's a hard act to follow, but I think that you're going to be very impressed by all the stories that we're going to tell tonight. So I see a lot of old friends who have been here many years in a row, and we have a few new friends that are just coming for the first time. So that everybody's on the same page, the Magnitsky Awards are happening on the anniversary of Sergei Magnitsky's murder. Sergei Magnitsky was murdered 15 years ago, and every year on the date of his death, we tried to find a way to remember him and to honor him. And about 10 years ago, we came up with this idea, which is, why don't we recognize and honor other heroes who have risked their lives to expose corruption, to take down autocrats. And we started with this Magnitsky Award. And it has a number of different positive effects. One, of course, is that it is called the Magnitsky Award, and we remember Sergei. But what it also does is it brings recognition to other heroes. It brings them all together into the same room, and it creates a community. And before we actually get into the awards, I just want to recognize the past awardees who are in the room tonight, because they are heroes themselves. So from 2015, we have Andrew Rettman, who won the Outstanding Journalist Award. We also have from 2015 James O'Brien, who won the award, and that's how and he's been the MC ever since, and so there's been a great payback. I also want to recognize Thor Halvorsen, who is going to be up here presenting an award from the Oslo Freedom Forum. Jeffrey Robertson KC, used to be Jeffrey Robertson QC. I think his seat is empty now, but we could still clap for him. Vladimir Kara-Murza. We have Marcus Kolga from Canada, who from 2017. Rupert Skilbeck, outstanding lawyer, 2019. Natalia Kaliada and Nikolai Kalezhin from the Belarus Free Theater. We have Paul Caruana Galizia from we have Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe. We have the Czech Foreign Minister, Jan Lipavsky. We have Anais and Karine Kanimba. We have Yevgenia Kara-Murza. And last but not least, we have Baroness, my dear friend, Baroness Helena Kennedy. So those are the people who are here tonight. There's a number of people for very bad reasons that aren't here tonight. And we have, there are some people who have received the Magnitsky Prize who are in custody right now. We have María Kolesnikova from Belarus, who's been sitting in jail for the last 4 years. We have Alexei Gorinov, who won the Magnitsky Prize in April 2022. He was the first person to be sentenced for protesting the war. He's sitting in very bad conditions in Russia right now. And of course, we have Jimmy Lai. His son Sebastian is here tonight. Jimmy Lai, as you know, is the publisher of the Apple Daily newspaper in Hong Kong, who's been in jail for 4 years for the crime of journalism. And perhaps most sadly, there are a number of people who have been killed who received Magnitsky Prizes. And my friend and ally Boris Nemtsov was killed in 2015. Alexei Navalny, who we're going to hear more about tonight, he won the Magnitsky Prize in 2018, and he was killed in as you know, February this year. Jamal Khashoggi won the Courage Under Fire Prize. He was killed in October 2018. And Tulani Maseko was killed in January 2023. And so this is a moment to remember those friends of ours who gave everything for this cause. So I'd like to now move on from that to the first prize tonight. And the first prize tonight goes to a person who changed the world. I'm going to be presenting the prize for the prize for the what is the prize for? Lifetime. Sorry, the Lifetime Achievement Award. The Lifetime Achievement Award is going to Senator Benjamin Cardin. Senator Benjamin Cardin is a true hero in my world. After Sergei Magnitsky was killed, I went around to Washington to try to figure out what to do. And I had many, many meetings with many, many people and politicians who all expressed sympathy, but nobody wanted to do anything, and they particularly didn't want to do anything as far as Russia was concerned. And then I met with Senator Cardin, and I told Senator Cardin the story of Sergei Magnitsky and his death. And Senator Cardin, instead of the usual sympathy, said, let's do something about it. And what he did about it was he created the Sergei Magnitsky Rule of Law Accountability Act. The Sergei Magnitsky Rule of Law Accountability Act imposes visa bans and asset freezes on the people who killed Sergei Magnitsky and the people who did similar types of things in Russia. And this was back in a time when there was no pro-Russian torture and murder lobby in Washington. And the Magnitsky Act passed 92-4 in the Senate and 89% of the House of Representatives and became a federal law on December 14th, 2012. Vladimir Putin went crazy. He banned the adoption of Russian children by American families. He made repealing the Magnitsky Act his single largest foreign policy priority. And Senator Cardin said, well, if this dictator is so upset by this, there's probably a lot of other dictators who would be upset by this as well. And then he introduced the Global Magnitsky Act, which passed in 2016. This set off a chain reaction, and over the next 10 years, there are now 35 countries that have Magnitsky Acts all around the world, all inspired by Senator Cardin. Senator Cardin, congratulations. Please come up to accept your award.
Well, I am overwhelmed and humbled when I look at the people that are in this room. First, to Bill Browder, Sir William. I think Sir Bill sounds better than that. Who was the driving force behind the Magnitsky sanctions. He didn't tell you the last chapter of that. After we made it global in 2016, I want to give a shout out to Senator John McCain, who helped make that possible in 2016. Our defense of human rights defenders has always been bipartisan, and we're going to make sure it is maintained bipartisan in the Congress moving forward. And I want to give a shout out to Kyle Parker, our staff person who has worked with Democrats, Republicans, House, Senate, and has kept us on track. But in 2017 or 18, when President Putin met with President Trump, he asked President Trump to do something about the Magnitsky sanctions. So we decided to listen to Mr. Putin. And in 2022, we made it permanent, so it's going to be there forever to make sure these tools are available. You know, I am very proud of what we've been able to do, and Bill, congratulations. This is now the global standard for accountability for human rights violators. If their own country will not persecute them and hold them accountable, we won't let them visit our country or use our banking system, because they want their properties protected by a country that believes in rule of law, even though they come from a country that does not believe in rule of law, and we're not going to let them get away with that. And it works. It has been effective. So I am so proud to have been part of this story. But I must tell you, I feel guilty accepting this award tonight. when I look at those that have literally put their life on the line to stand up for the rights of their fellow citizens, to express themselves, to demand proper living conditions, to take on political decisions that are wrong. I can do that, and I can live in the comfort of the United States of America. But one of the reasons that we wanted to make sure that we did what we could to protect human rights defenders is because that's what makes America, the United Kingdom, and democratic states strong. We believe in values. Our foreign policy must be based upon values. And that's what the Magnitsky sanctions allow us to do. But as I said, I feel guilty because there's people out there that put their lives on the line to do this. I didn't have to do that. You've already recognized my friend Vladimir Kara-Murza and Virginia. I met with Vladimir in my office after he was poisoned the second time. And I must tell you, he motivated us to do more in the United States. And we knew he was going to go back to Russia because he was committed to doing everything he could to help. In prison just because he spoke out against Putin's war in Ukraine. That's a hero. Not a person who can work in the comfort of our own country that protects us. And so many others that are in that category. I want to leave you with one major message today. And that is never give up hope. You can make a difference. You have made a difference. The people in this room have helped so many people around the world. Never give up hope. In 1987, I visited Berlin, went through Checkpoint Charlie as part of the Helsinki Commission, met with people from East Berlin that have virtually no rights under the communist government. They didn't give up hope, nor did we. We spoke out. 2 years later, I returned with my hammer to help knock down the Berlin Wall. I've returned to Berlin many times since. We make a difference on what we do, and we can never give up hope. Vladimir Havel said, the one thing we can never concede, we can never concede that it's meaningless for us to strive to do what's right. So I come here today. Many people think I just wanted to escape Washington. That's not the main reason I came here. But I came here today because I wanted to be with you all, our heroes. What you do every day to help people who may never know your names. You've made a huge difference. And I am so proud to be on your team. We've got more work to do. The Magnitsky sanctions are extremely important. Dozens of countries have enacted it, but we're not coordinated in our efforts. And if we get coordinated, we'll be more effective. We got human rights defenders who need our legislatures to pass laws to protect them, so they know we have their back. We're in the process of doing that in the United States. We need to work together to identify what every nation needs to do to fight corruption. And we started doing that in the United States. I have the honor right now of chairing the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that allow me to get some good things done to fight corruption. Corruption's the sauce that allows a Putin to exist. And we all need to do more to make sure there's a brighter future for all the people in the world. We're fighting for the Russians. We're fighting for the Belarusians. We're fighting for all those that are living in countries of autocratic oppressed leaders. And together, we're going to make a difference because we'll never give up hope. Thank you all very much.
The next prize, the Courage Under Fire Award, will be presented by a man who has been correctly applauded already this evening. Ben, a moment ago, Senator Cardin, a moment ago, pointed out the importance of apolitical campaigning, bipartisan, the fact that however deep the enmity may run between politicians or pundits or campaigners, what we learn from the Magnitsky Awards is that we are all allies when it comes to the missions and the causes that Senator Cardin just so beautifully articulated. But when you know someone, as a consequence of being here every year, when you meet someone and you joke together and you tease him about his tailoring, perhaps, and you think that that is the extent of your relationship, and then Vladimir Putin puts him in jail, and you have his wife on your radio show, and neither of you know in the course of that conversation whether she will ever see him again. But of course she did. So to present the Courage Under Fire Award, please welcome to the stage the bravest man I know, Vladimir Kara-Murza.
James, thank you so much for the very kind introduction, Bill, Sir William, Senator Cardin, dear friends. It is wonderful to be back here, and I really mean it when I say it. Please allow me a short quotation. I have learned of your arrest, my dear friend. I do not allow myself to despair. Whatever your fate, I will share it with you. I will follow you to the ends of the earth, if necessary. Do not doubt it for a moment. These words come from 1826, from a letter written by Princess María Volkonskaya to her husband Sergei, imprisoned at the Petr and Paul fortress in St. Petersburg for having participated in a Decembrist uprising. On the 14th of December 1825, a group of Russian military officers, noblemen and victors in the Napoleonic Wars, attempted an insurrection to replace the Tsarist autocracy with a constitutional system. The insurrection failed. Its main leaders were hanged, and many others were stripped of all their rights and exiled to Siberia. To this day, the Decembrists are remembered and celebrated by many people in Russia for their devotion to an unsuccessful but honorable cause. But there's one group of people who are remembered and celebrated even more than the Decembrists themselves, and these are the Decembrist wives. They did not have to follow their husbands to a life of hardship, suffering, and toil. They could have stayed back in the comfort of their stately mansions in St. Petersburg. But they chose to give up their normal lives, to lose their social privileges, and to travel thousands of miles east to the forsaken cold of Siberia, to take upon their shoulders everything their imprisoned husbands were no longer able to do. Many things have changed in Russia over these past 2 centuries, but some very noble traditions remain. Just as in previous eras, there are people in Russia who are prepared to stand up for what they believe in and to fight for a better future, whatever the cost. And for Alexei Navalny, the cost was the highest possible. And just as 2 centuries ago, there are strong, devoted, determined women who are ready to stand by thy side, to share their fate, and to follow them to the ends of the earth, if necessary. It is my distinct honor to present the 2024 Magnitsky Award for Courage Under Fire, for her strength, resolve, and perseverance in the face of unimaginable circumstances, to Yulia Navalnaya.
Good evening. Thank you so much, and it will be hard for me to give a speech after such an experienced politician like Senator Cardin, but I will try. Thank you so much. It's dear Sir Bill, dear Vladimir, it's a great honor to be here today among friends. And it's a great honor to receive this award named after Sergei Magnitsky, a Russian lawyer who became a symbol of violence and corruption of Putin's regime. Sadly, after this time, the amount of symbols and names of this regime has increased. To receive this award means that I am one of the bravest person, but of course it's not true. A lot of you in this hall are much braver than I am. And it wasn't my choice to be under fire. It happened so that my husband, Alexei Navalny, was killed by Vladimir Putin while he was in Russian prison. And after that, Vladimir Putin labeled me as a terrorist. And it doesn't mean that I'm afraid of it. Also, I want to say that I've been receiving this prize by Vladimir Kara-Murza, my dear friend, who was 2 times poisoned and survived. And he spent 2 years in Russian prison in torturing conditions. And now he's a terrorist as well. So we can easily trade our places. And I can imagine that I could be presenting him this prize as well. And it will be fair. But what is unfair is that the list of people who could be nominated for this Courage Under Fire prize just increasing every year. And it's very important to remember about these people and to do everything to make this list shorter, not longer. And at the end, I want to say that it's not me, but Vladimir Putin is a terrorist. And we are just normal people who are fighting for living normal lives in our normal democratic countries. Thank you.
I think this must be the first time I've ever shared a stage with two terrorists. But if that's what the qualification is in Vladimir Putin's Russia, then I hope it's not the last. We turn next to the Outstanding Lawyer Award, and to present it, a doughty friend of the Magnitsky Awards. Kyle Parker has been a leader of the Magnitsky movement since its very inception in 2009, when he learned that Sergei was being subjected to increasingly torturous conditions in Russian detention centers. For his work, he received death threats from Russia. He was sanctioned by the Kremlin, and in 2018 was one of the 11 US officials that Vladimir Putin asked the then President Donald Trump for permission to interrogate. Please welcome to present the Outstanding Lawyer Award, Kyle Parker.
Thank you, James, for that kind introduction. It's an honor to present our next award for Outstanding Human Rights Lawyer to Brandon Silver. Brandon is the founding director of policy and projects at the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights in Montreal. He's a leading international human rights lawyer and a protege of Irwin Cotler, former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada. Irwin himself received the Magnitsky Award in 2015, is a founding member of our movement, and a true human rights hero. Brandon's forceful and effective human rights advocacy can rightly be described as grounded in moral principle and expeditionary in scope. From fighting for prisoners of conscience like Jimmy Lai in China, to standing with Iranian women protesting a cruel regime, to pushing Western governments to prosecute Vladimir Putin for the crime of aggression against Ukrainians, to his tireless advocacy on behalf of the hostages held by Hamas since October 7th of last year. Brandon brings incredible heart, boundless energy, a true sense of vocation, and formidable legal prowess to bear on keeping their causes in the public eye, which helps to keep them alive. We've all just witnessed concrete proof of this in Vladimir Kara-Murza, who stood here at this podium after having spent over 2 torturous years in Putin's Siberian gulag for opposing Russia's genocidal war against Ukraine. Brandon was instrumental in Canadian efforts to recognize Vladimir as a political prisoner, to sanction his captors, to grant him the protection of honorary citizenship, and ultimately to help secure his release and return to his family and to this room full of friends. Brandon, thank you for all that you do on behalf of those who save our civilization by their acts of fearless integrity. Please join me in welcoming Brandon on stage to collect this well-deserved award. Thank you, Kyle, for that very kind and generous introduction and for your leadership that underpins the success of the Magnitsky movement and this gathering this evening. And thank you in particular, Bill, and to the members of the jury for this very humbling and moving award, which is simply a testament to the justness of the cases and causes I have had the immense privilege to be a part of. And to the friends and mentors I have been lucky enough to work with and learn from, and there are so many of you in the room today. But my greatest mentor and role model of all, Kyle referenced, Professor Erwin Kotler, regrettably could not be here in the audience with you this evening because he's the subject of a foreign state assassination plot in Canada that precluded his travel here. And that just underscores which many of you here know all too well, the grave threats facing human rights defenders. But now, even in Western democracies, the threats facing those defending human rights defenders and the lawyers working on these cases, and just really stresses the urgency of our democracies working concertedly and collectively to mitigate these threats. But this evening, I'm thinking especially about my late grandparents of blessed memory who were survivors of the Holocaust and came to Canada as refugees. And growing up hearing their stories of what they had been through was a stark reminder that evil does exist in this world. I think it's personal and can touch the lives of those you love most, but also that democratic norms, human rights principles are crucial and fragile, and that we have to keep standing up and fighting for them. And while the Nazis were defeated, the evil they represented persists today. And we see it around the world in the growing authoritarianism, in mass atrocities, in a lot of the cases that you saw on those screens. But at the same time, I draw hope from the brave dissidents who are on the front lines every day fighting to uphold our shared democratic norms and principles, and at great personal cost. So, immediately I think of Jimmy Lai, whose son Sebastian is here in the audience, and whose incredible legal team at Dowdy, Keelan, and Jonathan and Tatiana are all in the room. And at 76 years old, with diabetes, he's currently sitting in a prison cell in Hong Kong when he could have easily fled, come to the UK as a British citizen, but instead he chose to stay and to fight for freedom in Hong Kong. And his trial is resuming in just a few days, and we should all speak out and call for his release. And I think also of the hundreds of Russian political prisoners who bravely stood up and spoke out against Vladimir Putin's illegal and unjustified aggression against Ukrainians, and for that are sitting in Siberian gulags. And as Vladimir Kara-Murza likes to remind us all, once these proposed peace negotiations are coming about, we must not forget that those Russian political prisoners, their release, those who are going to be the future of a post-Putin peaceful Russia, must be a priority. And I'm thinking of the brave Iranian women who, despite being murdered and maimed, continue to take to the streets of Tehran to call for the equality that they deserve and that is enshrined in international law, and that the torturers of Tehran continue to come to the UK, to Canada and elsewhere to fund that oppression. So we must heed their call to use the Magnitsky Law to sanction the Ayatollah of Iran and to sanction the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps in its entirety as a terrorist entity. Canada just did so, the UK should do so as well. And finally, I'm thinking about all those humanitarians, peace activists, who are currently being tortured as we speak in Hamas's terror tunnels. This is a standalone humanitarian issue, a standing crime against humanity, and all of us, civil society, government, should continue to call for their immediate and unconditional release. But what gives me hope amongst all of this was seeing Vladimir Kara-Murza on the stage just moments ago, and his constant refrain that, as an historian, I know that history is on our side. So Vladimir is an embodiment of that line he would always share with us. Seeing him here is proof that, that moral arc of the universe does bend towards justice. But I would add that it is the courageous, brave, and good people like Vladimir and good policies like the Magnitsky Law that continue to bend that arc. So may this 10th anniversary of the Magnitsky Awards be not only an act of remembrance, which it is, but also a remembrance that, like Sergei Magnitsky, we must always act. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I mean, no disrespect to Kyle, but the winners seem to get younger every year at the Magnitsky Awards, except in the next category, which is the Outstanding Young Human Rights Activist. And it is indeed last year's winners who will come to the stage to present this year's award. Anais and Corina were survivors themselves. You can clap now, or you can clap when they're coming out to the stage, or you can clap both times. It's well deserved whenever you decide to do it. Having campaigned tirelessly to secure the release of their own father from prison in Rwanda, they now dedicate much of their lives to the kind of causes that we are celebrating and commemorating here this evening. So please, welcome to the stage the Kanimba sisters.
We first met Zhala in 2023 at the World Liberty Congress conference in Vilnius in Lithuania. She approached us and she said, "My father is a political prisoner in Azerbaijan. I need your help. I need everybody's help. He has a heart condition and we need to save his life." Our hearts stopped. We know all too well what it feels like to have a father who's unjustly detained under an authoritarian regime. Our own father had just been released after almost 3 years of imprisonment under the Rwandan dictatorship. We understood precisely her pain. Imagine the fear, the helplessness, and yet the unshakable drive to do everything in your power to save your father's life. Imagine Zhala, her days filled with phone calls, emails, pleas, and nights without sleep, haunted by the possibility of what could happen if her voice isn't heard.
Tonight, we honor this daughter, this fighter, whose name is Zhala Bayramova. Zhala's father, Dr. Gubad, is a hostage in an Azerbaijan prison for his courage to speak the truth and for exposing the corruption of President Aliyev and his oligarchs. From the moment he was taken, Zhala and her brothers became the fiercest advocates, his voices in the world beyond those prison walls. Zhala did not allow fear to stop her. Instead, she transformed it into relentless determination. Day after day, she continues to fight for her father's freedom, sending emails, knocking on the doors of the world leaders, and raising her voice on every possible platform. Her courage is more than bravery. It is love. A deep, unbreakable love for her father. It is resilience. The kind of resilience that will not be silenced, and it is hope. The unyielding hope that justice is always worth fighting, no matter how dark the path may seem, just like Sergei Magnitsky.
Zhala, your unyielding courage, relentless dedication, and commitment to justice in the face of incredible adversity. You embody the very essence of what it means to be a human rights activist. We are deeply proud to present you with this award as an outstanding young human rights activist.
Zhala, this is for you. You're a warrior.
Thank you a lot for having me here. And today, me and my brother Ibad, we're going to tell you a story. In July 2023, when my mom and my dad was driving in Azerbaijan, their car was crashed by 6 cars. 20 men in black physically assaulted them. My mom thought that this is some kind of a mafia. They're like sex trafficking or organ mafia. She was extremely scared. She was screaming for her life. She was screaming that, oh, she's too old for that, and my dad's organs are not working. But it turns out this mafia was Azerbaijani police. They were brought to organized crime department. Because of the physical assaults my mom received, she lost 30% of nerve function on her right side of brain, has hard time to balance herself. They kept my dad 9 months in detention, in isolation center, without no access to medical care, medication, or food. And you may ask, like, what did my parents do to deserve this? Why were they punished like that by Azerbaijani government? My dad, a LAC professor, Dr. Gubat Ibadoglu, investigated money laundering, corruption, and environmental effect of oil and gas industry. It's not only that Azerbaijani oligarchs has 5 cars, 5 houses, but also he investigated how they have same channels with Russia to money launder to UK, but also corrupt politicians. My dad also investigated how Azerbaijan buys oil and gas from Russia and then pumps it to West, and what government is trying to do to silence him. Not only that, he wanted to change the future. He opened a scholarship foundation in UK to get confiscated money by UK government from all Azerbaijani oligarchs so that Azerbaijani students can have an access to education, can actually come to UK and Western countries, study abroad, and learn the values of UK about human rights and democracy, because that's the only way to change the world, and that's the only way to change also Azerbaijan and many dictatorship. For my dad, it wasn't only about fight for Azerbaijan, but it was about fight for our security in the Western world, not only against Azerbaijan, but also Russia, but also against Kazakhstan, as he was investigating the oil and gas industry there as well. And now our family is fighting for his life, because he has heart aneurysm, which means that his heart artery can crack and he can die anytime, and he needs heart surgery. I actually also want to talk about another case from Azerbaijan, which my dad described him as an angel when he met him in detention center. His name is Afiyattin Mammadov, as you have seen his picture in the beginning, and he's also another young activist in Azerbaijan and kept in detention center right now and fighting for his life. But my father and Afiyattin are not exceptions. Now we have more than 300 political prisoners, We are hosting COP29, and we have not a single independent voices in the COP event. And I am here to ask your help. I am here because my civil society, the family that I know in Azerbaijan, we are voiceless. We are in exile, we are in detention. We need your help so we can fight not only for Azerbaijan human rights and democracy and for every country around the world, but I'm also here to ask your help because my dad is dying and I need to save his life. And please help him. Thank you.
The presenter of the next award is about as close as British journalism gets to royalty. Former editor-in-chief of Tatler, Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, and Talk. She went on to found the Daily Beast, and I hope she won't mind me saying that when I grow up, I'd quite like to be her. Currently a co-host of Truth Tellers, an investigative journalism summit that commemorates her late husband, another true titan of British journalism, Sir Harry Evans, and a recipient of just 10 National Magazine Awards, as well as a Lifetime Achievement Award from Women in Journalism. But she is on award presenting duties this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, Tina Brown.
Thank you. Thank you, James. A little excessive, but very well received. August the 15th, 2021. That heartbreaking day when America's ill-planned and feckless exit from Afghanistan threw the proud, emancipated Afghan women back into the dark ages of the Taliban's crushing erasure of their very humanity. Zahra Joya is one who did not accept banishment. She had known the cruelty of Taliban suppression as a child when, in their previous reign of terror, girls were banned from school. But her enlightened father allowed her to dress as a boy for 7 years in order to get an early education. After attending university, she worked for a decade as a journalist. And in 2020, she founded the news platform Rukhsana Media to tell the stories of Afghan women, naming it after a 19-year-old girl who was stoned to death by the Taliban. Now, Zahra, forced into exile in London, and her all-female team, who are still on the ground working in anonymity in Afghanistan, fearlessly continue their mission. In July of this year, Rukhsana Media and its partner, The Guardian, saw and reported on a video of a jailed female activist being gang-raped by armed Taliban men. Video that had been sent to the victim in exile as a warning to remain silent or risk community shame. But instead, its revelation provided irrefutable evidence of the ongoing sexual assaults against women activists. It was a sensational story, but often the power of Zahra's platform lies in the poignant vignettes that break through the sterile geopolitics and media neglect. Stories like the eager university student gutted to learn the Taliban had closed universities to women. I felt a rush of hatred filling me up, the student wrote. the women and girls of Afghanistan are being buried alive along with their dreams. Or the Kabul beautician whose livelihood disappeared when the vice and virtue police shut down her salon and told her her profession was, quote, satanic and un-Islamic. Zahra, thank you for keeping the individuality of Afghan women alive for all of us with your resourcefulness, enterprise, and compassion. It's my great pleasure to honor you tonight with the 2024 Magnitsky Award for Outstanding Journalism.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. It is a great honor to speak here in front of you. Receiving this award is deeply meaningful. This award is not just a recognition for me. It represents the struggles, sacrifices, and challenges faced by human rights defenders everywhere, like Sergei Magnitsky and many others who have stood up for justice and equality. My journey to promote human rights, justice, and gender equality has been difficult and full of obstacles. Yet, I always found the strength to continue. With Roxana Media, I wanted to create a space where women can share their own stories directly in their own voices. Since starting, we have faced political threats, social pressure, and financial difficulties. We often felt unsure if we could keep going. Soon after establishing Roxana, Kabul fell to the Taliban. And it became clear I needed to leave the country. The Taliban would surely punish me for my work, so I fled to the UK. I still remember those days filled with fear and anxiety. The day I left Kabul with my siblings was the most painful in my life. I left behind my parents, my home, and my country. Under Taliban rule, women faced two harsh choices. They can either accept strict laws and take away their identity and freedom, or live with the consistent risk of danger. I cannot accept such limits. I cannot watch the world from behind a burqa or live a life of silence and fear. Instead, I chose a third path, a path that brought me to London, which I now consider my second home. I continue fighting from here to create a space for women to speak up and reclaim their voice and their rights. But this is far from easy. Every time we decided to publish a story, a sensitive story, like the sexual assault for women, of women and murders of women's rights activists, we must carefully consider the risk in order to protect our colleagues and sources. These choices are difficult and emotionally exhausting, but we keep going because we believe women's voices must be heard even in the darkest times. Despite this peril, we are extremely proud that our reports are now informing the United Nations, contributing to a growing body of evidence of gender apartheid under the Taliban regime. Dear audience, speaking the truth has been always difficult and costly. Recently, the Taliban imprisoned 2 male journalists for 10 years because of their works. I dedicate this award to all women who, despite the overwhelming obstacles, have fought for their rights and continue to stand strong. Our struggles goes on, and your recognition gives us the strength to walk with difficult path, even with greater determination. Thank you.
And now to our final award of the evening, the Outstanding Political Opposition Figure. To present it, another tireless friend of the Magnitsky Awards. Thor Halvorsen is a human rights advocate, a film producer, the CEO and founder of Human Rights Foundation, an organization which, as most of you will know, began advocating for human rights in London in 1989, organizing opposition to South African apartheid while he was still at school. Thor is also the founder of the Oslo Freedom Forum, the annual global conference which brings together human rights defenders from around the world to speak truth to power. Thor Halvorsen.
Good evening. It is my privilege here tonight to honor the undisputed leader of the Venezuelan opposition, María Corina Machado. She's a worldwide symbol of resilience, courage, and the nobility of the human spirit that accompanies the struggle against dictatorial oppression. María Corina Machado cannot be here this evening because she is in Venezuela in hiding. She has not left Venezuela in more than 10 years. She has led a movement that has given Venezuela hope. She won the opposition primaries with more than 92% of the vote, an open primary. And with this mandate from the opposition, she challenged a government that was so threatened by her that they imposed a 15-year political ban, preventing her from running for any kind of office. Undeterred, María Corina chose a stand-in, an elderly grandmother, to run in her place. The government then disqualified and banned her stand-in from running. So María Corina chose a retired diplomat. Eventually, Nicolás Maduro, the dictator, realized that it didn't look very democratic to continue disqualifying every subsequent stand-in. So the dictator allowed it. The dictator then ordered that María Corina be banned from all Venezuelan media, including so-called independent media, to never feature her. And so her voice has not been heard on the radio in Venezuela or in the news or on television in many, many years. But María Corina campaigned in person, holding rallies. So the dictator ordered her banned from traveling. And so María Corina isn't allowed on an airplane inside anywhere in Venezuela. So she decided to use a car. So then the dictator had the motorways shut down. So wherever she goes, if they stop in for petrol or gasoline, That gas station, that petrol station is shut down and fined by the government for giving her the necessary resources to continue in her car. Oftentimes, when they shut down the motorways, she takes roads in the middle of fields to get where she needs to. She has also taken boats to get to certain rallies. If she stays at a hotel, the government will then punish the owner of that hotel and close it down for 3 weeks or a month. Anything and everything to asphyxiate María Corina's abilities to present the case for democracy. But beyond campaigning, her objective was to win and to be legitimate, and in that, stopping the government from cheating. What was most impressive is that María Corina used technology to be able to prove her victory. So many dissident movements, so many opposition movements around the world, we can always prove that the dictator cheats. We can always prove fraud. But this is the first time in history that a political movement has been able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, using the rules and playing by the rules of the dictatorship, that they won. And in this case, her candidate, her stand-in, Edmundo González, obtained more than twice as many votes as Maduro. And if you consider that Venezuela has had the greatest political exile movement in the history of mankind, more people have voted to leave Venezuela with their feet than have left Ukraine or Syria, and those countries were at war. 8 million people exiled, and not a single one of them allowed to vote. If you consider each of those votes and you add those to the votes that María Corina's stand-in Edmundo González obtained, we'd be talking about more than 80% of the population voted for María Corina Machado's party. María Corina Machado's tonight's Magnitsky Award winner for Outstanding Political Opposition Politician. Please welcome, directly from hiding in Venezuela, María Corina Machado.
Well, good evening. From Venezuela, I want to express my profound gratitude to Sir William Browder and the Magnitsky Awards Committee members, especially my friend Thor Halvorsen, for this most significant recognition to the Venezuelan people. I also want to greet our friend Senator Ben Cardin and ladies and gentlemen present tonight, especially today's other awardees. Each one of you represent a fight for truth, justice, and freedom. Many of you have been true allies of our cause, like Senator Cardin, and many of you also understand the magnitude of our struggle, which transcend borders, like Yulia Navalnaya. Receiving this award is an honor, and also it is a great responsibility. Its origin and purpose was always remind us that truth must always be defended, no matter the cost. That is precisely what our fight is all about. For more than 25 years, we have fight and struggle, and finally we have achieved what was thought impossible. We defeated a cruel regime under their own illegal and absolutely unfair terms. They never expected that we would win by a landslide in the July 28th presidential election, but even less that we would prove our victory collecting all the tally sheets and digitalizing them in less than 24 hours for the world to see. We have united the country. We have built an unprecedented civic movement based on common values, human dignity, solidarity, justice, freedom. Ours is an epic, historic victory for our country and for the region. We have accomplished the unthinkable and continue advancing towards a transition to democracy in Venezuela. The Venezuelan regime is a testament to what corruption, crime and human rights violations mean for a society. It is also evidence of the tentacles that sustain the regime's power and its global allies. As I speak to you from hiding, there are over 2,000 political prisoners in our country, including children and women that have been accused of terrorism, that have been tortured or sexually abused. The regime has shown its most ferocious and ruthless face in response to their defeat in the presidential election. Just today, the regime killed Jesus Martinez, a 40-year-old music composer, member of our campaign team in Anzoátegui, an eastern state of Venezuela. He was kidnapped from his home the day after the election. What was his crime? Having collected the tally sheets in his voting station, like Sergei Magnitsky, he was killed in custody. This happened just a few hours ago. This is that reality we're facing right now in Venezuela. I dedicate this award to Jesus, to his mother Mary, to his very young daughter Suzanne. Our country was intentionally condemned to misery, rampant corruption, the dismantling of the rule of law and institutions, and the looting of our resources have ruined our nation, forcing it into the largest migration exodus in the world today. Almost a third of our population have been forced to flee our country. But the Venezuelan people are determined to live free and to bring our kids back home to a country they will be proud of. This is why I received this award on behalf of all my fellow Venezuelans with a great sense of responsibility and hope. It is a commitment that reaffirms our determination to be free very, very soon. It is a commitment that reaffirms our relentlessly pursuit of justice and reminds us that we will never give up. The future of our country for the next generations depend on us and what we all do today. Once again, I thank you for this recognition, which belongs to an entire nation that embraces freedom and truth. I assure you that we will win, and this fight is till the end. Thank you very much.
And that brings us very close to the end of this evening's events. A quick word about Tor. Don't worry about the crutches. He hasn't injured himself. He's playing Long John Silver in Treasure Island at the London Palladium this Christmas and is getting into character nice and early. Like all Magnitsky Award winners, María Corina there spoke about truth. And it was, I think, probably George Orwell who put it best when he spoke about the fact that there is truth and there is untruth. And if you can hold on to the truth, even if you are the only one, you will not go mad. What the Magnitsky Awards gives us all, whether the heroic recipients of the awards or the supporters, the friends and the family, it gives us all an annual and a constant reassurance that while we may all be mad, we are not and never will be alone. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the 2024 Magnitsky Award winners.